Good evening, viewers. Welcome to another session of Mazungumzo. Once again, this is your host, Dr. Gilbert Githere, coming to your homes again with the program Mazungumzo. And as usual, we are covering the book Being and Time by Martin Heidegger. We're doing an analysis of what is being, who makes up being. Now, this is part 16. We are right inside the topic. And this has been an interesting journey because there are so many words we have discovered. They are at the center of being, of Dasein, being of Dasein. Now, as we continue in this part 16, we are coming to the word like understanding. Understanding is very much in the future. This is possible because the state of mind, but through temporality, it is able to find itself in a having been situation. The understanding, it finds itself in having been situation. Because the statement or the phrase having been, that is in the past, is very important in a discussion of being in Martin Heidegger's context. Also, moods are futural in nature. Your mood is futural in nature, but they are also influenced by present and future, especially when temporality is introduced in the play. Having been playing the catalyst, moods come into state of mind in different modes. Moods have been discovered recently because you see, psychology and psychiatry and all these discoveries have been made by the sciences today. So moods have been discovered recently through scientific methods. In the primordial times, the state of moods remained fuzzy. In primordial times, these were considered colored experience, transgressing the psyche. People had not really known, gone into the depth of psychiatry and understand things like depression, anxiety, all these kind of things have become clearer with advancement in sciences. The activities of the mind which appeared in a flash and lasted for a short time or while were considered moods in the primordial consistency of existence. That's a mouthful right there. The big question in this analysis is how moods relate to time, or when it comes to time, time. How do moods relate to time? They seem to come in short intervals, meaning time must be playing a factor in their behavior. This behavior of moods is an ontical activity, real being. Ontical means real being. And ready to hand and present to hand, as I said earlier, are in a state of real being, ontical. But our aim is to see them from an existential ontological perspective, time being a factor, meaning temporality. So moods, we want to see them in existential ontological kind of prism, because that's the one we are using as a magic wand to see who are the entities that are entailed or are involved in Daseins' existence. So if we look them from the ontical point of view, if you look at moods from ontical, real being, we'll miss it. So we got to throw them in the mixer or in the blender of existential ontological phenomenology so that we can actually discover what is in the mood, what entails, what entities make up mood or moods. The big idea here is to expose temporality of moods, for this state of mind is always in the realm of having been. In existence, this nears Dasein as always brought back into this activity, and this flashback is made possible by time. The bringing back does not immediately bring back having been. So to help solve the problem, but it will having been, and always allows us to scrutinize its existentiality. So I kind of go back to that. Bringing back, that's a statement. It should be in quote. Does not immediately bring back having been. So to help solve the problem, but it reveals having been and allows us to scrutinize existentially. It is important to note that temporality does not solve our problem. Moods, which are a variable of state of mind, do not show any significant meaning when analyzed through temporality. Causes analysis. Temporality helps us to decipher causes or to see things through causes analysis. That's the point of temporality. So this forces us to see if this problem can be approached through fear and anxiety. Fear and anxiety are a variable of moods, as we saw in our previous analysis. So we have kind of, at this point, as we try to see who are the entities who are involved in Dasein's existence, we have reached now to analyze moods. But to get into them, moods is such a general things, a general statement, that we got to go into moods and identify entities. And we have been lucky that anxiety and fear are moods we can actually look at and understand Dasein moods through looking at fear and anxiety. The mood ecstasis, the word ecstasis, outside of itself, for itself. It's the consciousness, the dialectics of consciousness, ecstasis, has these components that have to mix with temporality in a correct way for ideal results to be obtained in existential ontological structure. This is why fear is an inauthentic state of mind when examined through a prism of temporality. So you see, if you look at fear, which is a state of mind, through temporality, you're looking at it in unauthentic. It is not authentic, inauthentic. You got to throw it to be authentic and real in existential ontological, phenomenological structure or situation or consistency. You have got to take it away from temporality. You cannot look at fear from temporality. You got to throw it into the blender of existential, ontological, phenomenological structure. And there you can be able to decipher fear. Because fear is a state of mind, is also a state of language, discourse. Because for you to have fear, you have to have a consciousness formed of language, words and statements that make you fear like darkness, somewhere where you're just by yourself, or might be a bad experience with a dog that beat you one time. This creates fear when you think that you're gonna meet a dog when you visit your friend. It creates a state of anxiety in you. And that's now analysis we are able to make it because we have thrown fear into the blender of existential ontological phenomenology, and in looking at it from a primordial where sciences have not affected or influenced how we look at fear. We are looking at it from a classical point of view, time gone, when science had not come in and analyzed fear. We are doing it at a original state. So the question becomes, what is the right combination of ecstasis when associated with fear plus temporality brings in the right results? So what mixture or recipe are you going to throw into the blender when you're looking at fear in the existential, ontological, phenomenological constituents, and throwing ecstasis into it, looking at it from a dialectical point of view? What are the recipes that you're going to throw into that blender so that to understand fear? Fear is something threatening, potential for being of Dasein, being out there, falling, irrespective that it is the range of ready to hand and present hand. Its threat still creates concern in us. Fear is exposed to Dasein by way of circumspection or through the art of experience. This is a scientific discovery, which is another route of giving antecedent meaning. This is different from the existential ontological route. In the primordial milieu, fear would remain a concealed entity to Dasein. Fear has the ability to be experienced by Dasein as it goes around trying all modes of existence in its everydayness endeavors. This is called letting something come towards oneself. Fear is said to be waiting for something evil to come along. In other words, fear can be called future, which is a variable of ecstasis. Ecstasis is this like time travel. The best explanation or example is, let's say when people, filmmakers, because I come from the discipline of filmmakers, when we used to edit programs previously and you're cutting your film, you're doing it physically, analytically. So you had to go piece by piece. But Photoshop came. Photoshop is a video program where you can copy the film you have done and then edit it digitally. And it helps you. If you are rewinding a program analytically, it's a physical thing. You rewind the tape physically, bit by bit. But if you're using a CD or you're using a digital Photoshop material, You don't have to rewind. You just go to the point of entry and you put a point of out. And then you can cut out that piece just in no time. Now, that is what ecstasis in life helps human beings. Just in time travel, you can travel and experience when you are a young man. For example, you are 20 in college, and you can revisit your classes with your friends or the activities you used to do together. That is ecstasis. That's how existential ontological phenomena works and helps us to decipher what are the entities who help Dasein in his existence. That is what Martin Heidegger, during that time, helped us achieve. You can imagine. That's a deep thought. And that's what he's doing here. He's traveling through time. Because ahead where we are going to see historicality and temporality as it relates to time. And then we're going to see what really is there between when you are born and when you die. That journey. That is seeing the history that developed between birth until one dies. And that is where we will meet words like anticipatory resoluteness, the ability of man to survive, confidently achieving things and living history, irrespective that he is finite, knowing one time he is gonna die, but still he denies that thing to make him unable to achieve things. So he uses anticipatory resoluteness to achieve history in that time of birth and death. We're going to get into that. It's a very interesting situation. Fear has the ability to be experienced by Dasein as it goes around trying all modes of existence in its everydayness. This is endeavors. This is called letting something come towards oneself. I think I had read that before, but pardon me. Fear is said to be waiting for something evil to come along. In other words, fear can be called future, which is a variable of ecstasis. There's no problem in repeating something. Awaiting is the one which existential temporal constitution of fear, awaiting, is actually the fear is in a state of awaiting. But this temporality is inauthentic, proximally. Fear is a face of something coming, which is evil by nature. That expectation cannot be fear. It lacks all the characteristics of fear, especially as it relates to mood. This character lies in the fact that in fear, the awaiting lets what is threatening come back to one's factically concernful potentiality for being. That's an interesting statement right there. The fear we are talking about, you got to take it away from mood and put it in the blender, in the mixer of thought for you to unconceal it. This character lies in the fact that in fear, the awaiting, because fear, there is an awaiting of something that you experienced before, as has got to be triggered in your mind. Once a dog beat you when you are young, you have fear in you. Or you went swimming one time and your experience might be a crocodile. You're almost bitten by a crocodile. You have fear of water. One time you were mugged, might be with your parents in a street. So your fear comes when you're in dark places or lonely places in a town. The one that comes back will be accepted by Dasein as fear only if they are ecstatically synchronized, and so will Dasein be threatened. All those factors have got to be synchronized. Darkness, you are attacked once, time you are mugged in a lonely place at night. They have got to synchronize and come, and then you start feeling fear. Dialectically, in awaiting, fear to send back that is threatening to Dasein is simply fear is fearing for itself. In this situation lies the contradiction of the character of fear as mood and as effect. When Dasein is threatened in a state of being in the world, meaning ready to hand, here Dasein is concerned for its potentiality for being of its own. In this mode, Dasein backs away in bewilderment. In this mood, Dasein forgets itself, and so the state of forgetting the self is what is fear. Aristotle defines fear as a kind of depression or bewilderment. It's a state of mind. The depression being talked about here is the one that puts Dasein into a state of thrownness, that is closed off, and Dasein is in a state of forgetfulness and just accepts it. That's why you see anxiety and fear. Sometimes fear is nothing. It's fear itself. So this is what you're seeing. It's a very abstract situation. So that is why when you're faced with things like anxiety, you got to relax and take the things which are making you anxious, decipher them, deconstruct them, and get to their source. And slowly you will start to unwind yourself from your anxieties. Thinking of bad things most of the time will bring anxiety. And that's why you see, Martin Heidegger has dealt with fear in a very deep dialectical method, because it is very, very dialectical. The negatives and the positives are in conflict, and that's why you feel anxious. Now, in resoluteness, especially when in the realm of potentiality for being, there is a lot of self-preservation and evasion, using those possibilities that circumspection has made available to Dasein. So now we are getting to the word resoluteness, anticipatory resoluteness. You anticipate, you are finite. You create a buffer. You create denial. And when you create denial, you will create fear and anxiety. Because denial is you're having something at the back of your mind, in the schema, in the subconscious, and you are not letting it out and address it and decipher it and disconstruct it, as Jacques Derrida used to say. You got to deconstruct a text to get into the depth and the meaning of it. So you see, there is that aspect of facing your past. But we are getting there. So resoluteness is actually Dasein creating a denial. But when fear sets in, Dasein jumps from one possibility to the other. This behavior is said to originate from forgetfulness, which is a variable of waiting for nothingness. When fear takes this format, the environment becomes non-negotiable. One feels completely lost. So you can see Dasein being studied by Martin Heidegger. There is a very, very in-depth study of the human mind. Actually, I'm shocked at how deep Martin Heidegger was able to get into the state of mind of human beings. Because actually, he gets into discussion of hyperreality, repetition. Because that is the time travel I'm talking about. It has the aspect of being repetitive. He got into that. Binality, the 1 and 0 for getting into the digital age. Dasein starts to make up things. Martin Heidegger calls this making present of first things that come up in the mind, a sign of forgetting oneself in fear. It is known that people are caught in a burning house tend to go through the forgetfulness discussed above. And for this reason, they end up saving the least important items close, ready to hand. They are in fear. So their mind triggers forgetfulness. So they end up actually saving things they don't really need and not the most valuable. They are in that state of denial that I'm talking about. It comes from anticipatory resoluteness. When one is in this mode of forgetfulness and bewilderment, he is in a confused state of mind, and he makes incorrect split decisions. At the same time, the awaiting mode is also replaced by different possibilities, giving out completely different results. If awaiting is a mood, it gives out a depressed effect or a bewilderment. For Dasein to be afraid, a certain ecstasis, unity, has to form. Its important ingredient is temporality as a medium of ecstasis, unity, plus forgetfulness. This is, you got to go and decipher them yourself. They are kind of very involved terminologies. You got to go back and each statement, you go through it because it's all a state of denial, anticipatory resoluteness. You're trying to face your finiteness. There has to be an end of life. You're born, you live your life, existence with so many challenges, you face them, but you are living headed towards your demise and your end. And you are in a state of forgetfulness, nothingness, because you don't want to bring this to the forefront of your life so that it incapacitates you to approach the future. Because Dasein by nature is futural, is temporal, and he is always challenging time and space for existence. The above medium is all in the realm of having been, and this allows the modification of present and future through temporalizing. You modify the future to look bright, for you to be able to undo the things which obstruct your life to be comfortable. These are the challenges of life. Life is short and brutal, you know. Those are philosophers. Temporality of fear is a forgetting, which awaits and makes present. Fear is made up of what we come across in our everydayness, oncoming evil, which Dasein fears. This evil is one of expecting. Anything else which belongs to the phenomena remains a feeling of pleasure or displeasure. So a human being is in these two states, and is a phenomena. It's actually the dialectics Hegel dealt with, the positive negative. That for a seed to succeed to bring its offsprings to life after it's gone, it has to die, has to negate itself for it to get a positive result of its own siblings. It has to agree to get old, work hard, die, and leave its offspring enjoying its fruits. That's the dialectics of life, existence. And the entities that make it survive that struggle of existence is what is the being that Martin Heidegger was looking for. Anxiety. That's another thing we are going to do, because in studying moods, we have come out with these two words, fear and anxiety. We can only see moods when we throw moods into that blender of existential ontological phenomenology constituent. We get out of that, we get fear and anxiety. And then we look at those two entities and their being. Then we understand Dasein and his existence and how he fights fear and anxiety. At this point, the analysis is going to try and decipher the similarity of the temporality of fear and that of anxiety. To start with, anxiety is a basic state of mind. To start with, anxiety is a state of mind. Because in the being of Dasein, state of mind, understanding, falling, and discourse are prime. They are actually the foundation of being. Excuse me. Let me just check how much time we have done. 34 minutes. We try and get to 40. Anxiety is said to bring Dasein in close proximity to his state of thrownness, being out there, trying to exist in the Gaia, and all the trials of being in the world. The character of anxiety is made up of two components. That which is in the face, an owl, say a traditional African Kikuyu man looking at an owl. it brings bad omen. If it finds it perched on his roof, it will mean a bad thing is going to happen, face to face with an owl. Of which one is anxious about? You know, traditional Africans are anxious about a symbolism of an owl. Second, something about which somebody is anxious, death. It will come at a certain time. It creates anxiety. A physical things like an owl represents death. So the two things. You're anxious. Being in the world, however, is both what anxiety is anxious in the face of and what it is anxious about. That's a mouthful. These are things you're going to understand as you decipher and you read Being on Time several times and analyze it and think about it. Because you see, reaching at a level where you're doing a PhD, the analysis is very deep. It's like one lecturer used to tell us, it's like swimming shallow waters, blue and nice. You know, you have the capacity to handle it. And then there is deep ocean, red ocean. You're swimming in very, very fierce waters. It needs an expert. You're riding a huge surf, which can take you up there and bring you down rushing and crush you against the rocks and your power. Anxiety does not seem to come from anywhere apart from Dasein himself. Anxiety which Dasein seems to experience is neither ready to hand or present at hand, so it is nothing. That's a very important thing that Martin Heidegger brings out in the Sciences of Psychiatry, that anxiety is nothing. So when you face anxiety, face it headlong, because it's nothing. That is where it just comes and you feel this fear in you. And you don't know what to do. It is good to note that when it comes to anxiety, entities are not in play in any way. But in this analysis that we are dealing with, in those entities who interact with others in daily existence. So this will be like my last statement, then we're going to wait until part 17. Fear is occasioned by entities with which we concern ourselves environmentally. Anxiety, however, springs from Dasein itself. Fear is occasioned by entities with which we have concerned ourselves environmentally. So, entities that we have got concern about might bring fear, darkness, lonely places, a cave. You are in a lift by yourself, enclosed. You don't know what you can do if something happens. But anxiety, however, springs from Dasein itself. That's why when you see you get anxious, it just comes and it starts building up, but you cannot tell where it is coming from. When fear assails us, it does so from what is within the world. Anxiety arises out of being in the world as strong being towards death. So you can see, it's a mouthful right there. Our finiteness, that one day we will have an end, is what is anxiety. So put it at the back of your mind and close it in your psyche. Visit it a little bit, that one time a man must come to his demise. Finiteness is real and is there. Accept it. So we're going to continue